call this meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Williams.
I'm here.
Councilmember Daniels Cohen.
Here.
Councilmember Grimes.
Here.
Councilmember Mail.
Here.
Councilmember Schultz.
Here.
Councilmember Siemens.
Present.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
And if people couldn't tell, Councilmember Mayo is participating remotely via phone tonight. We don't have any additional agenda items this evening. I'll just point out a couple upcoming agenda items on future meetings. Reminder that we start our Thursday budget work sessions this week, so we're meeting this Thursday, the 11th. Then on Monday, the 15th, we have a public hearing on the proposed FY14 budget. That's the first of two public hearings. The second public hearing will be 2 weeks later on April 29th. Then also next week, we have a presentation from Montgomery College and budget work session. Next Thursday, the 18th, budget work session. Monday, the 22nd, budget work session. Thursday, the 25th, budget work session. So
Will they all last till midnight?
we'll see. I don't have anything for the record, so we'll go to public comment period, and this is the time to comment on anything that's not on our agenda. So if you have comments on the public hearing on the charter amendment, please hold those for the public hearing. And if you have anything, I guess anything else except the public hearing, because our only voting items tonight are a consent agenda. So anything else? I see Mr. Lovelace in the back.
Hello, my name is Pat Lovelace, your official peace delegate. One thing I'd like to do is remind you people that we got that gun control bill being discussed in the Senate. And we want you to call up your senator and your your senator and your congressman to try to push that. We want to get gun control. We want that. We want to get them to do the universal background checks, because if we can make it harder for some of these people to get those guns, it'd be better. Because once a gun is released into the community, it can be it is a deadly weapon, and it could be used by the wrong person. It can produce a lot of grief. I'd also like to see a ban on the assault weapons, the ban of the high-capacity magazines, and also the hollow point bullets. I'd like to see a ban on. And if we could call our senators and our Congress up and tell them to do that, They may already be on our side, but we want to have them talk to their colleagues over there in the Senate, because one's threatening to do a filibuster and shut the voting down, and we can't let that happen. We really can't. That's a coward's way out. Anyone who does that has to be a coward. You know, they can't just sit back and say, I'm scared of the NRA, I can't vote, they're going to take my votes away. Well, 90% of the United States of America approve of this. They want to see a gun control. They want to see it. And I hope all the senators and congressmen out there, if they're listening or if they know about this, they should do something about it. Because those 20 children did not die in vain as far as I'm concerned. It affected a lot of other people around the country too. I got sick from it and everything else. And I just don't want to see this happen to anybody else, any other person's children again. You know, plus we can do everything we can to get these guns under control. We got to do everything we can to stop the crazy people from getting them and stop them from being sold to them. So if we can get this bill passed, it'd be a miracle. So I'd like to everybody do, like I said, call up your senator, Congress, and do something about it. The number is 202-322-3121. No, it's 422-3121. Let me get that number right. 202-422-3121. 422-3121. Remember, that's the number you call if you want to speak to your senators and Congress at the White House, the Capitol, to see what we can do to make this a safer world to live for our children to grow up in. I grew up, and now we got to protect the children's rights to grow up. Okay, and welcome back, Kay Daniels Cohen. I would love to have you back. You get a gold-plated peace sign for this. Thank you very much. Get well soon. We love having you back. We love, love, love it.
Thank you.
Pat, thanks.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move to council comments. Councilmember Daniels Cohen, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Pat. Thank you for the good wishes. I'm kind of winging it tonight. Abraham Lincoln and I had something in common. His was shorter than mine, both of us on the back of an envelope in my talks. But I have to begin with huge thank yous to the beautiful outpouring of good wishes, prayers, and happy thoughts for me. As I said before, I put so many in a heart-shaped bottle to be released as they're needed. A special shout-out and gold stars to all the helpers in my neighborhood for food, cards, pastries, flowers, cleanups, rides to doctors, and so much more. It's an honor and humbling to live in a city this filled with givers. There'll be more to come from me as this challenge and opportunity are still being created. Thank all of you again for everything, and now on to the really important stuff. And some of this is old news. It's stuff I didn't get to say because for one reason or another I wasn't here. But I don't know if you all had the opportunity to see this article in the Washington Post magazine. It went as far back as March 17th. I know that was a while ago. But it was about our very own Walter Rave. Actually, it's an 8-page graphic novel of his life and what he did here in Takoma Park. And whether you agreed with him or not, and a lot of people didn't, he was a pretty out there, over-the-top kind of a fellow. His message was pure and simple, and it was in cruelty in any form. This is worth going back and looking up in back articles on your computers. I know most everybody here probably has one. It's worth taking a read because he was a pretty remarkable man. More old news. Sorry, last week I didn't get to say this, but last week you got your Takoma Park newsletter. At least it looks like your parents got your Takoma Park newsletter. Some of the parents are here. So most important, to not let this be in the recycle bin. It is chock full of what's happening in Takoma Park. And on the front page, of course, City Council considers proposals to expand voting access. And that, I think, is covering a lot of you all who are here tonight. But The back page has got all the noted big deals that are happening during the month of April, and it also sends you to the inside part of the newsletter. But just for a little bit, let's see. This Saturday is Arbor Day, the 13th. They're going to be giving away tree seedlings at the library from 10 to 2. It's a huge variety of seedlings. So I've gone every year. If I wasn't here in Tacoma Park, I went to Laurel. So I planted a whole lot of trees. And what that does is it helps our tree canopy. And you all know, you can see the standing deadwood in the city and around. It helps us with continuing our tree canopy. So worth going to pick up at least one seedling. I usually let them give me 3 or 4. I kind of sneak a few extra ones. So the second thing, it's happening on Sunday, and this is something that Washington Adventist Hospital does every year. Washington Adventist University. They're both almost on the same campus. It's their Family Fun Festival. I'm going to give you something to do on Sunday, but you can do this too. It's from 12 to 5. It's on the corner of Carroll and Flower. And this, to my knowledge, is the first time I've actually gotten a postcard. And I don't know how many else got a postcard in Tacoma Park, but this is advertising the Family Fun Festival. Lots of food, really a moment to reach out and meet and greet the folks at the college. We're beautiful downtown Tacoma Park, and we have a full college within our city limits, and that's pretty exciting. Along with, we still have a full hospital. Now, my heart of hearts, the 4th annual Art Hop. There are at least 35 shops, restaurants, and galleries, and that the Art Hop is going Saturday and Sunday. And there are going to be about 60 visual artists. Sunday, a trolley will take visitors from venue to venue, the farmers market and nearby neighborhoods. This year, this is my first year that I'm going to be on the trolley instead of being an artist. It's breaking my heart, but I guess I get to participate in one way or another. Good stuff for everyone troweling around. Huge gold stars to the Old Tacoma Business Association for continuing their over and above the call of duty to a commitment to our fair city. For this is one of the only magic things that they're doing this month. So keep your newsletter. Make sure you don't let your parents recycle it. Recycle it April 1 on May 1st, because then you'll get the May 1st one. Thank you all so much.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. I would like to remind everyone on April 23rd at 7:30 p.m. The Flower Avenue Green Street meeting will occur at Wilkinson Hall. This is the second meeting with the design team, that the design firm that the council retained, and the Public Works Department. At this meeting, the changes that residents in the community made will be incorporated in the design. Also, I would like to remind my colleagues of my proposal of a capital reserve fund in the amount of $125,000 for the Green Street project. I would hope you all will join me in supporting this project. Furthermore, I'd like to encourage Washington Adventist University to take advantage of the SOD grant application. I understand that somewhat of an application has been filled out, but it needs to be completed. The residents on Flower and specifically Erie do deserve a better looking retail strip than they have right now. And finally, I would like to thank the mayor for meeting with President Spence of Washington Adventist University. It is encouraging that some of these issues that residents are complaining about are being resolved, but I would like to remind the university that the HVAC unit is still a problem for many residents. Thank you.
Councilmember Grimes.
Thank you. I will add to the litany of programs that you've heard about myself. by mentioning that for Art Hop, in addition to the Art Hop itself on the 13th and 14th, that is Saturday and Sunday, there's a kickoff party 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday the 12th, which is taking place at Trove at Carroll Street Northwest and Maple Street Northwest. Yes, we are allowed to go into the district. Then I don't believe you mentioned the Tacoma Park Earth Day celebration. Oh, by the way, for Art Hop, you can go to arthoptacoma.com. You did not say that, right?
Say that, no.
arthoptacoma.com. For Earth Day, you can go to tkpkearthday.org. That's Sunday, April 21st in the Tacoma Junction area from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Use your imagination about what Earth Day covers. Then also in Tacoma Junction, Historic Tacoma is having a series of programs at their headquarters building, which is just downhill from the TPSS Co-op on Carroll Avenue. You can learn about those at historictacoma.org. And then also think about reserving May the 5th, 2013 for the 40th Annual House and Garden Tour, which is that afternoon, May the 5th from 1 to 5 p.m. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Schultz.
Few things. If for the folks in my in Ward 6 that I represent, I want to remind residents that the New Hampshire Gardens Civic Association meeting is having a special called meeting tomorrow evening at the Rec Center at 7 o'clock. There's going to be some pretty important issues discussed, as well as filling the vacant position of treasurer. Secondly, I want to extend talk about the fact that the Crossroads Development Authority has done something really special for our community, and that is that they've the Crossroads Development Authority, for those here in the audience who are not familiar with it, is an organization of the businesses on New Hampshire Avenue at the intersection of University Boulevard, about 150-some businesses. They have adopted, under the Adopt a Highway program with the State Highway Administration, a stretch of New Hampshire Avenue from University Boulevard all the way down to Ethan Allen Avenue. And this past Wednesday, they fulfilled their one of 4 days this year. They have a commitment to clean the roadsides on both sides of New Hampshire Avenue for that entire distance. And so last Wednesday, Melanie Isis, the executive director of the organization, was able to gather and enlist the help of 10 students and 2 professors from Washington Adventist University who came out, got trained, got their bright orange vests, and spent several hours walking down both sides of New Hampshire Avenue. And why I mention this is that I've lived in that area there for over a quarter century, and I think this is the first time that anybody's picked up trash in a systematic way along that highway. And so it's going to happen 3 more times and on in the future. So I think a shout out is in order to the Crossroads Development Authority for taking this on and getting it done. And also, I think in the interest, I'm not a member of the Tacoma Foundation, but I think it'd be useful to remind people that the Tacoma Foundation, which is a public 501c3 charity, completely run by volunteers here in the city, twice a year gives grants to community organizations. And the grant period for the spring cycle is, the deadline I think is April 11th, which is very soon. These are small grants, anywhere from $500 to a couple grand, that can go out to PTAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, neighborhood civic associations, as well as other nonprofit organizations. It's pretty open, pretty easy to get a grant. And Tacoma Foundation's been doing this for a number of years. All the money that they take in, 100% of it gets turned around and given out. This is not like the Red Cross, where a big chunk of every dollar you contribute to the foundation gets soaked up in administrative costs. It's a good organization. They do good things, and they help an awful lot of people be able to take care of problems in the city of Tacoma Park that they otherwise would not be able to take care of. So that's all I wanted to say tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Siemens.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to let everyone in Ward 4 and across the city know that the work has begun on the traffic calming measures on Ritchie Avenue.
Yay!
And I know that many people have been waiting for that so that we can remove the turn restrictions off of Maple Avenue up at Piney Branch Road. The work started this week. They've already got the bump outs along the side, the concrete work done, and so they should be done with that hopefully by the end of the week and start working on the circle at Oswego, Geneva, and Ritchie Avenue
Yippity-yip.
next week. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that an organization called Marva Harvest has been making plans to open a little farmers market on Maple Avenue and at Long Branch Community Center, and everything's in place, and it's supposed to open in Long Branch on Friday. So we look forward to that, and as we get specific schedule for their market at 4 Sevens on Maple Avenue, I'll let you know about it. Thank you.
Councilmember Mayo, did you have any comments?
No, I don't at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I've just got a few. Looks like we lost him. Councilmember Smith and I attended the official unveiling of the Flower Art Project last Wednesday. That is the first in a series of things going on at Long Branch and Flower. The mural is on the side of the building as you approach Piney Branch Road on Flower Avenue on the right, on the last building as you approach the intersection, and it's above the bus shelter. So if people want to take a look, that's a real nice art project, and that will kick off a number of things happening at that area. Also attended the opening of the Historic Tacoma exhibit at Montgomery College, and that is a nice photo and information exhibit on Tacoma Park's history, and that's on exhibit through June 7th. I'm not sure I remember the name of the building correctly, but it's in the same building as the theater on the corner there at 410 and Georgia, and it's a real nice exhibit, so stop by and take a look. Tomorrow night, I'll be presenting testimony on behalf of the city at the county as the county council kicks off their budget hearings, and look forward to doing that. On Wednesday, I will be attending the COG board meeting. A number of you may have read in the Post this morning the article on the little controversy going on there about the gun violence and how best to deal with it on a regional level. And so that should be an interesting discussion. Councilmember Siemens and I have been tag teaming on that up to this point, and it should make for an interesting conversation. And then finally, I will be going on Friday down to Fredericksburg for a local government advisory committee meeting on the Chesapeake Bay. I think that's it for council comments. Does the city manager have any comments?
Yeah, sure.
Not many, just one. I just wanted to tell folks that we're still waiting confirmation of a public meeting with State Highway on both the 410 repaving and on the New Hampshire Avenue Bridge over Sligo Creek. We're aiming for Wednesday, April 17th in the at 7 here in the building, but haven't gotten a final okay yet. So I think, we can share the word, and when we finally find out, we'll say it's on. The point would be to both talk about the 410 repaving project and then talk about kind of the impacts of the bridge over Sligo Creek on New Hampshire Avenue.
So this SHA would actually be present this is the meeting you're talking that
that's the point.
The community has been awaiting with bated breath.
They better not hold it, but we are aiming for the 17th and pushing hard.
Okay, I realize it's tentative, but it's
And 7:30?
7, I believe.
7 o'clock.
It's the closest we've gotten to a community meeting
Yeah.
with SHA throughout this entire,
Yes.
I don't know what you call it. I hate to call it a project because nothing's happened.
So that's all.
Okay,
Great.
thanks. We don't have any minutes to adopt this evening. A legislative update. Today is sign and die.
Today is it. And as far as I know, just about all the work gets done between now and midnight, so we'll see. I've asked for an update, but we don't have anything yet, so I think it'll be a report tomorrow.
Right, we just know that the stormwater bill that could affect our stormwater utility is up for grabs. The amendments
It's probably going to be
appear,
okay,
disappear, and we won't know until we get up tomorrow morning.
but that's right.
And the Route 410?
We'll see. There's stuff in play, but we'll have to wait till tomorrow morning.
Shoot.
So we're waiting on 508 and 1508. Okay. That takes care of the preliminaries, so we will now go to the public hearing. Let me just lay out a little bit of how we do this for folks who aren't familiar with it. The council has been discussing a number of proposals to make voter registration and voting in city elections more accessible for residents and to increase voter turnout. On January 22nd and again on March 4th of this year, the council discussed these initiatives and indicated an interest in moving forward. A charter amendment is required to implement some of the proposals, such as allowing same-day voting, same-day voter registration, reduction of the voting age to 16, allowing convicted felons to vote once their incarceration is complete, establishment of early voting, and reduction of the residency requirement for voting from 30 days to 21 days. We again reviewed draft language last week, April 1st, and the language that's in the Charter Amendment resolution has been revised to reflect the revisions, and we have the public hearing this evening, and what we'll ask is that we have some people who signed up, and we'll take them in the order they signed up, and then we'll provide an opportunity for anybody who wishes to comment who hasn't already commented to do so. And what we do is we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you come to the podium, and you can see the timer and lights on the podium as well, and there's a warning noise, beep, single beep at 30 seconds to go, and then the red light and the beep happen at the end of the 3 minutes. So we appreciate your commenting, and we will go to public comments. And I have about, I'll say, 20 people who have signed up on this sheet, and then we'll go to anybody else. So in the order that they signed up, Pat Lovelace. And he'll be followed by Lord Charkoudian and Camille Kirsch.
Hello, my name's Pat Lovelace, 7620 Maple Avenue, official peace delegate. I'm very much in favor of getting the 16-year-olds out to vote, because that can be a really good educational process and get them interested in how our government works. Try to get participation in our community affairs. That's one thing I've always been wanting to see. So I'd like to see the 16-year-olds be allowed to vote, because, and like I said, I don't know, a lot of people tell me that they don't agree with that, but I think with proper education, they're going to want to do it right, and they will do okay. I have faith in our youth. And another thing, too, is I do not see why convicted felons cannot vote. I don't like that. It's un-American. American way, we have a right to vote. We cannot take that away from anybody because they're in the big house or prison, whatever you want to call it. I don't think we have a right to take their vote away. And I'd like to see Tacoma Park lead the way on that, on these issues. That would be really good. It would be great also if we started on these things right away. And also the early voting. I think that's a great idea. The Republicans tried to get the ID passed and all that, so the minorities cannot get a chance to vote because they won't be able to afford to get the the ID on time, and they won't be able to vote. And I don't like that. I think they should be able to vote, and I think we should do everything we can to preserve their right to vote. By early voting, the same-day registry, it gives a lot of people who maybe have health problems a chance to still register on the same day. Gives them a chance if they haven't registered in time or in the hospital or something. It gives them another chance to vote, even if it is on the last day. They're still registered with our digital system. It should not take that much of a problem to do that. And I'd love to see that because, again, that should bring the vote out. We're really doing our best to do that. So I said, if you can pass this resolution, this ordinance, I would love to see it. Thank you very much. We do need something like this in our city. We do need to lead the way in the United States. Tacoma Park will show the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lord Charkoudian?
Good evening. My name is Laura Charkoudian. I live on Ethan Allen Avenue. So I want to start just by saying I support all of the proposed changes, but I want to focus on the issue of folks involved in the criminal justice system. I applaud the plan to allow those who are on parole and probation to vote. Right now there's 13 states in the United States that already do that. But I want to encourage us to go a step further. Pat, I'm afraid we can't lead the way because 2 states have already beat us. Maine and Vermont allow those who are incarcerated to vote. And several countries allow those incarcerated to vote. Some examples are Australia, Canada, Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Israel, Japan, Kenya, Netherlands, Norway, Peru, Poland, Romania, Serbia, Sweden, Zimbabwe. And in Germany, the law even calls on prisons to encourage prisoners to vote. So just when we're thinking about voting as a civil right, one of the things that I want to do, it's a very complex issue, I think, the whole issue of how people become disenfranchised from society overall. But I'll take this moment to recommend the book, The New Jim Crow, by Michelle Alexander. And it highlights the way that many ways that the criminal justice system disenfranchises people involved in the from society and sort of keeps people stuck, and that even in a sort of creates a second-class citizenship for people of color, even while appearing to do it in a way that's race neutral. And so while dealing with the issue of voting rights is really only one small piece of that, it's an important piece of that, and we have this opportunity right now in Tacoma Park to take a significant step on it and to make a difference for at least for our residents. And so, as a civil right, when we're going to strip the right away from any class of people, we need to consider what the reason is and really need to explain ourselves. And I don't think that there's a legitimate reason beyond when people are actually convicted of selling votes or election fraud. And then we also need to examine the potential underlying bias that we all have in making those decisions when we're making decisions to strip rights away from people, and how much our biases are sort of reinforcing and doubling up and sort of increasing punishments. And the other thing I want us to be thinking about is that people commit crimes. People are less likely to commit crimes when they feel invested in their communities, when they have positive relationships and they feel connected to their communities. And so there's, again, that's a very complex issue, and it's one that I do I work in. A good piece of my career is involved in that. But one of the things that makes people invested in their community is being civilly active in their community. And so I think it is a important piece of connecting people to their community, giving them the right to consider election issues and vote while they're incarcerated, and it sends a message that we know you're coming back, we welcome you back, and we look forward to you being a productive citizen when you come back to our community.
Thanks very much. Camille Kirsch, followed by Chaimi Sonam and Max Poli-Keen.
Hi, my name's Camille Kirsch. I'm here today with a delegation of other young people who care very deeply about the proposal to extend the right to vote in Tacoma Park to 16 and 17-year-olds, some of whom will be speaking after me. I've lived in Tacoma Park my entire life. It's been a big part of who I am and how I grew up. I deeply care about this community, and I think that I and my peers should be able to have our say in the policies that affect us here in our community. I've tried to find ways to help the people of Tacoma Park my entire life through whatever service opportunities were available to me. Park cleanups, Old Town cleanups, lots and lots of cleanups, definitely. But also working with my peers to help our community through food drives, through activism, through coming to meetings like this and speaking up. I support expanding the right to vote to 16 and 17-year-olds because people who care about this community should have a voice. 16 and 17-year-olds are Tacoma Park residents too, and most of them stay here longer than 18-year-olds who may only be here for a couple months after their birthday before going off to college. So long-term decisions about what's going to happen in our city have a lot more impact on people who are 16 or 17. Also, 16-year-olds here pay sales tax, hold down jobs, volunteer in the community, and can be pretty passionate about politics, even local ones. Change often starts with youth, and true to Tacoma Park's reputation as one of the most progressive cities in this great country, I believe that we should let youth speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Chami Sonam, Max Polikeen, and Alexander Cohen.
Hi, my name is Chimi Sonam, and I support the proposal to expand the right to vote to 16-year-olds. As a teenager today, I experience a double standard that's used against the American youth. We fulfill a set of adult duties and responsibilities, but don't receive the adult rights. That's unfair. 16-year-olds spend time working after school and caring for younger siblings and completing academic assignments. We are even forced to attend school to learn about government as 10th graders. What's the point of that education if we're not allowed to exercise the rights about which we are taught? 16-year-olds abide the same laws as adults and live under the same government. We deserve to have the same opportunities that adults do when it comes to elections. This is our concern too. This is our government as well, and we want a say because we get affected by these decisions just as much as adults do. I grew up here in Tacoma Park. It's a close-knit community. Allowing 16-year-olds to vote could bring us even closer. You would be involving young people in this community in a whole new way, politically. By letting us vote, you're affirming that we're mature enough to be at your level politically. You're respecting us as equals and thus giving us reason to act maturely. Thank you.
Thank you. Max Polikeen, Alexander Cohen, and Lee Cook.
Hello, my name is Max Polikeen, and I'm a student at Montgomery Blair High School here to represent extending voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds. Before I start, I just want to thank Mayor Williams and the City Council for hearing debate on this important issue. Voting is best exercised by those who have taken the time and effort to learn about the issues, and the most important aspect of a democracy is a well-educated and thoroughly engaged citizenry. These are sentiments that have been uttered time and time again by some of our nation's greatest leaders and some of history's greatest thinkers. I truly believe in the importance of well-educated and engaged voters, and I'm here today to submit to the Council that 16 and 17-year-olds in Tacoma Park are those people that feel passionately about the issues that affect them, and are the people that look at all sides of an issue and come to a well-educated and thoughtful conclusion. They are the people that are extremely beneficial to a successful democracy, and they are the people that care. Let me speak briefly about my own involvement in politics. I'm a member of the Young Democrats Club at Montgomery Blair High School, and on Election Day I work with State Senator Jamie Raskin to persuade voters to vote yes on questions 4 and 6 on the Maryland ballot. In February, I visited the Maryland State House to try and help persuade state senators and representatives to repeal the death penalty in Maryland. Also in February, I work with County Councilwoman Valerie Irving on her Snap the Silence campaign, which raised awareness to the issue of poverty in Montgomery County by encouraging citizens of Montgomery County to live on a food stamp diet for 1 week. Just recently, I went down to the Supreme Court and heard oral arguments on Proposition 8 in California and the Defense of Maryland Marriage Act. People sometimes ask me if it bothers me when adults say that teenagers don't care about important political issues. I say no because it only encourages me to show them that not only do I care, but most all teenagers do care. I want to make that extremely clear. It isn't only me and the other youth testifying tonight that care about political issues. Most everyone I know does. After hearing about the possibility of extending voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds in Tacoma Park, I've spoken to many of my classmates about the idea and have been stunned by the extent to which my fellow students were passionate about different issues. One guy with whom I eat lunch was appalled at the incarceration rates in the United States and feels that the criminal justice system should focus on rehabilitation programs for drug addicts instead of jail time. A group of skateboarders, remembering the fear they felt when they first went to a skate park, felt passionately about safety in public parks. A girl in my physics class, who had done research on different public education models, think our public school system would benefit from a teaching style and curriculum used in Finland. Municipal government focuses on issues that affect you so much, and I truly and emphatically believe that youth should have a say in those decisions. I promise you, we are ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexander Cohen, Lee Cook, Robert Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm 34 years old and I live in Silver Spring. My right to vote is not at issue here, but I came to witness history. Young Americans are denied a say in the laws and policies that affect them as much as their elders. As much, I say, but I should say more, because there are all manner of special laws and special policies that target or disparately impact young citizens. There are curfew laws, schools that feel like prisons, zero tolerance, special restrictions on abortion and contraception, all manner of minimum ages, skateboarding restrictions. These are just things I came up with off the top of my head. Not all of this, of course, is within this council's jurisdiction or would be affected by this change. Many of the things that might be are things that wouldn't occur to me. Not just because I live a few blocks beyond your borders, but because I am 34. Because these aren't the issues in my own individual life. And that is certainly a reason to extend the franchise, to include the people affected by such policies. There's another reason, though, as well. Trends take time to build in history. Wyoming established women's suffrage half a century before the 19th Amendment. Other states followed. Eventually, it became constitutional law. You have the opportunity, other states and territories, I should say, you have the opportunity to exercise similar leadership today. And I hope you will take that opportunity and begin treating another 2 years' worth of young citizens as citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Cook, Robert Anderson, John Manns or Maines.
Hello. My name is Lee Cook. I'm also a student at Montgomery Blair High School, and this past winter I turned 16. And in Montgomery County, most kids my age take a government class, actually, when they reach the 10th grade. And the majority of them, like myself, turn 16 during or soon after their sophomore year. This is an incredibly enriching class. It teaches us the functions of national, state, and local governments. I personally feel incredibly authorized to influence political decisions within my community, partially because of my knowledge from AP Government and partially because of my interest in local issues, both social and economic. And when many students reach 18, which, as you know, is the legal voting age, they leave town and their interest in voting often disappears. 16 and 17-year-olds experience the same results that adults do when it comes to the political decisions that the government makes. And I think that by allowing these young voters or allowing these young people to vote, we are inherently cultivating political efficacy from a young age. As a 16-year-old, I would like to have some say in the matters that are important to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert Anderson, John Manns, Carmen H.
Good evening. I'm the most unpopular man in the room because I'm going to oppose the 16 and 17-year-old vote, and I'm going to give some reasons why. First of all, those under 16 have few, if any, legal rights of adulthood. Parent permission is needed to drive, to work, to drop out of school, to join the military, to go on a field trip, to join the track team. The list goes on. But those topics I've already addressed. I would like, however, to address two other issues. The first has to do with fundamental fairness for all of our citizens. 2 points regarding young voters. First of all, youth and families that talk about politics and vote more often vote than those in less politically involved families. Secondly, young voters most often vote similarly to their parents. Therefore, allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote will increase the political power of homes that are already politically active. And it will likely decrease the political power in some of our other communities and wards where many citizens may not have the same political interest or skills. In an interview aired on WTOP on March 23rd, Mr. Grimes stipulated to the fact that he believes not all 16 and 17-year-olds will vote. This was on the WTOP website report of the story, and I quote, Mr. Grimes said, we come across many 16-year-olds who are engaged in the system and ready to vote, says Grimes, who believes lowering the voting age would boost voter turnout. He says mature 16 and 17-year-olds are likely to make informed decisions, while immature ones simply won't register to vote. As I understood it, the voiced reason for this proposal seems to be that it will increase voter turnout, not that it will make a vote available to a particular class or subgroup, which his statement appears to stipulate too. In an email response to another citizen's question about the impact of 16 and 17-year-old voters, Mr. Mayle said that they wouldn't impact the vote because they're only 2 to 3% of the population. Well, in 2011, 1,813 people voted. 2% of the population to 3% of the population is between 350 and 500 people. That's about 1/6 of that total group. If indeed all of the adolescents vote, they will indeed change this, the voting process. I've spoken to a number of educators on this issue, and they are all in agreement with me that it's not the time to lower the vote. 16-year-olds have many, many different kinds of issues, many things that they're looking for, and it's not an issue. One of the problems that we have here is that the vote isn't just being given to the students in the AP history class. The vote is being given to all students throughout the cafeteria and throughout the school. If you're going to vote to change the voting age, I would encourage you to go to a high school, spend some time there, and then go to a college campus, spend some time there, and take a look at the difference in maturity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, may I say that my conversation with the WTOP reporters routinely cherry pick quotations that fit their stories out of much longer interviews, and that was the case in this interview.
Thank you.
John Manns, Carmen H., and Bill Bistricki. Yes. And the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people didn't give us an address, so if you can just tell us where you live.
So, you need my address as well? Do you need my address as well?
Just, yeah.
Just say it out loud?
Sure,
or?
sure.
Okay. I live on 13309 Queenstown Lane, up in Germantown, Maryland.
Thanks.
All right. Do I just start?
Yep.
Okay. Honorable Mayor and City Council members of Tacoma Park, I am John Mannis, a current senior. As a youth serving the role of a youth advocate, I have heard the full gambit of arguments over time that I have been active in everything from curfew debates to my own voting rights expansion hearings in Annapolis, that youth are in no way prepared to take on the mature tasks of those older than them. My own elected officials have often cited their stories of childish immaturity, stating that their experiences with youth have not sufficiently impressed them, or that more commonly, they themselves respect youth but would not even let the younger versions of themselves take on the responsibilities that they have now. I guess that would exclude joining the armed forces, getting married, having children, leaving home, paying taxes, and generally playing a significant role within adult life. I have visited a lot of schools across this county, and the message that I consistently hear is respect and responsibility. Sure, there are youth who are not respectful nor responsible. Why else would states like California spend 3 times more per inmate in their penal systems than on their own maintenance of effort funding toward the education of their youth in their states and districts? Maine and Vermont happen to allow their incarcerated prisoners the right to vote. John F. Kennedy once said that a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. The fact that we have a dialogue currently being entertained around the capabilities of youth seems to indicate a massive disconnect between youth and adults in general. Perhaps we are simply incredibly misunderstood, but as Senator Barbara Boxer of California would argue, I am sure that every one of my colleagues, Democrat, Republican, and Independent, agrees that in the voting booth, everyone is equal. My peers have inspired me, taking charge of the world around them, almost always while lacking a right to vote. I have never once heard anyone I have worked with state that they do not wish to try to make change because they are not responsible for the situation that they are in or the rules that they have to follow. This is not a proactive mindset, and we as youth work to seize all that we can to make our communities serve us in more pragmatic ways. To those that say we risk of voting for fringe candidates or that we may vote for youth-friendly messages that do not serve the entire community, while I say that very seldom do youth complain about having a president that is often a half-century older than us. We do not sway in our activism when we know that we put our ability to ascertain Social Security, acquire a job, and pay college tuition in the hands of folks that, although are our gatekeepers of our communities, have that as much in common with us as we do with the prisoners. We have a lot of room to improve in society in enhancing citizen engagement. We do not teach our youth to be risk takers, and we do not teach our youth to challenge authority. This needs to and can only change through suffrage. We say one size does not fit all, yet we have this age-old idea that there are 2 types of people, grown-ups and kids. This is quite frankly not the conversation we need to be having. When we fail to cultivate voting habits of youth, everyone suffers. Teens rise to our expectations, and if we do not cultivate the energy and oftentimes ingenious ideas of our youth, yet we expect them to continue to contribute in greater numbers and louder voices against animosity. The funny thing is, we do rise to the occasion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carmen H., Bill Bistricki, and Dahlia Hu.
All right, so good evening, Honorable Mayor of Tacoma Park and City Council members. I'm from Germantown, Maryland, and I'd like to say that communities such as Tacoma Park really serve as the foundations of civic engagement for youth. It is in these communities where we grow up, where we learn, and we first take on the responsibilities that we will need to face as adults. We have to ask ourselves, at times like these, when the stakes for the future well-beings of youth are at their highest, and youth civic engagement and efficacy are at their lowest, what can the local communities do to address this disconnect? Classroom learning is not always holistic nor sufficient in teaching youth the responsibilities and tasks that they will encounter in the adult world. Learning is experiencing. Learning is engaging. Granting voting rights to more youths is an investment, and by doing so, we mitigate the effects of this disconnect by allowing well-informed teenagers to have a say in their communities. We are creating a future electorate that is knowledgeable and capable of making sensible decisions for themselves. We are instilling and demonstrating the importance of civic duty. It is the experience of being discontent with a lack of voice and control over the decisions that exert exorbitant amounts of influence over the lives that youth learn to be attentive and proactive citizens. It is this experience of engaging in civic matters, which many of us do, that create well-informed youths capable of making the decisions that they see fit to benefit the present and futures of their communities. We have heard repeatedly that we lack the maturity and resources needed to make such decisions. The fact is that many of us do not. Many of us are engaged in our local communities. Many of us are attentive and receptive to the decisions that our local policymakers make. Many of us are members of youth advocacy, civic action groups, and volunteer during Election Day. We care. And if we manage to engage so deeply throughout our lives, what truly differentiates between the capabilities and tact of voters at 16 from ones at 25 or 30? As a youth advocate, I simply am asking for the respect and time that is given to my adult counterparts. I would like to be able to make sensible decisions on the matters that directly influence the futures of me and my peers. And most of all, I would like to be responsible and a well-informed citizen. Although lowering the voting age is revolutionary and imperative, we can anticipate little change in the electorate when suffrage is granted to more youths. It is a safe solution, one that is very worthy of consideration. And because it is probable that only the most dedicated and attentive teenagers, like their dedicated adult counterparts, would be voting in the municipal election, an addition of youth voice and accountability into the City Council would be made while avoiding any dramatic changes or overhauls within the Council. What I ask of you is not to be swayed by the claims of immaturity that are often associated with youth. And no, this isn't an, I hate my life, I'm so misunderstood calling, but it's one that is voiced by eagerness to be respected and trusted by the communities that we, as youth, serve as the futures of. So thank you.
Thank you. Bill Bystricki, Dahlia Hu, and Becca Ritchie.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Williams and Tacoma Park City Council for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Dahlia Hu, and I live in Germantown, Maryland, and I'm a member of the Montgomery County Student Government Association, coming here today to voice my support for the students of Tacoma Park. When decisions are made, we are the last to be informed, and we're the last to be asked for our input. The opinions of the youth population constantly seem to fade into the background. We are Americans. We pay taxes, as mentioned earlier. We pay sales tax, gas tax, and income tax if we have a job, just to name a few. We are active in our communities and walk into any classroom at any high school here in Montgomery County, and you'll see a vibrant group of students doing what they are best at to make the world a better place in some way. Walk into a classroom on the right or left of that one, and you'll see exactly the same thing, but through a different idea or project. We are knowledgeable about government, and we want to put this knowledge to use. We are energetic, ready to be involved in our community in as many ways as possible. By lowering the voting age to 16, it would encourage students to be more active and reinforce the family value of civic duty. A good citizen tries to better the community in a way that will benefit everyone. Ask any student here what they do after school, and you'll likely get as many answers as students you ask. As government officials, you represent all of your constituents, including us. We may be under 18, but we make mature decisions each and every day. We care for our younger brothers and sisters. We have jobs, take college courses. Some of us even own our own nonprofits and companies. And the fact that students have come out here today to testify should serve as a testament to our education. Teenagers have earned the right to vote for our elected officials and, in essence, take part in the decisions that affect our lives. Virtual representation isn't good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Bystricki, followed by Becca Ritchie and Gabriel Acevero.
Good evening. My name is Bill Bystricki. I live in Rockville, but I also have the honor of serving as Executive Director of the National Youth Rights Association. And of course, we are very proud to support this historic proposal to expand democracy by including 16-year-olds. Earlier in life, I was a high school teacher. I taught government, and I did not teach AP government. My students were much more challenging than the ones that you're seeing today. And I can tell you that the greatest barrier that I found to teaching them government was embodied in the sentence that I heard from students over and over again. They said, "Why should we care about this stuff? We can't even vote." But of course I knew that these people were probably the same ones who a few years later would be saying, "Why should I vote when I can't really understand this stuff?" Telling people to study something because someday, years in the future, it will involve them, well, that doesn't work. I think most of you can imagine how much time would you spend trying to learn a computer program if you knew that you wouldn't be able to touch a computer for another 2 years? Most likely you wouldn't spend any time at all. You'd wait for 2 years, and then when you had access, you'd try to figure it out. For students to engage in our democracy, they need to be part of that democracy now, not just some time in the distant future. America's democracy surrounds these youth, but youth are excluded from the benefits. They are locked out. The policies that come from on high often tell students that they are not really part of this society, that their views and their values do not matter, that their participation is not wanted. And I can tell you from my own observation that many teenagers unfortunately respond to this with sour grapes, telling themselves bitterly that America does not really matter, that democracy does not really mean anything. They develop the habits that look from a distance like apathy. They remain unengaged, sometimes for life. Voter turnout keeps sinking. America looks less like the democracy that we wish it to be. This situation has to change, and Tacoma Park now has a wonderful opportunity to turn this around. Now, it's true that those aged 16 to 18 would only be a small share of the electorate, but by welcoming high school students to be part of this democracy, Tacoma Park will send a big message to these young people that they are part of society and have a reason to take seriously their civic responsibilities. Students in Tacoma Park will grow up in the habit of active and responsible citizenship. Other nations have invited 16-year-olds to vote, and they have seen the benefits. There's no reason America should have any less democracy than these other countries. So I hope that in this year, Tacoma Park will have the courage to lead America in expanding and rejuvenating our democracy. This proposal is the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Becca Ritchie, Gabriel Acevero, and Rob Ritchie.
Hi, I'm Lucas Ritchie.
And I'm Becca Ritchie.
We spoke at the last meeting, but I just want to reiterate what everyone said, and that I am full-heartedly in support of this, and that I would be very proud to be a member of the first town to allow 16-year-olds to vote, and I hope it passes.
I also think it's really important. Obviously, I don't have a piece of paper. I don't have a set idea of what I want to say, but I have like a passion, and I think that a lot of youth these days have this kind of passion for what they want to say and what they want to advocate to, like, the community. And I think it's really important that we are able to advocate what we want to the community, because when we are able to vote, we are able to impact and feel more tied in. And I think it's easy for teens to get off track because they don't feel tied into the community. A lot of people, like they feel alone or they feel tired, or, like, as teenagers. But I think that if we were able to get tied in and get enhanced by the ability to contribute to the community, I think it'd be a lot easier for us to maintain a good mindset. And I think it's also, like, we are qualified. Like, 16 and 17-year-olds have been going to school for a very, since we were maybe 4 or 5, and we have been learning. And I think that another thing that's really important about 16 and 17-year-olds is it doesn't just specify, like, one race. It doesn't specify one type of people. We've all been 16 and 17, or we all will be 16 and 17. And I think it's really important because across the border, like, everybody has been there, and everybody knows that you have a passion, you have what you want to say. And if you're not allowed to say it and you're not allowed to, vote for what you believe in, then I think it's really irritating and frustrating. And I think that it's just not okay, because I think that we should have this right, and we should be able to do and contribute to the community that we're living in.
Thank you. Gabriel Acevero, Rob Ritchie, Catherine Tunis.
Good evening, Mayor Williams, members of the City Council. My name is Gabriel Acevero. I am a future resident of the city of Tacoma Park, and I'm here on behalf of the African American Democratic Club of Montgomery County, not only to echo and endorse the comments of the young lady who was here earlier, who mentioned that the right to vote is important, particularly for ex-felons who are assimilating back into society, but also for youths as well. I would like to endorse the provisions of this proposal that allows ex-felons to vote in municipal elections, and as well as allowing young people between the ages of 16 and 17 to vote as well. The question of who can vote and who can't vote has been something that has plagued this nation for many years since its inception. And the right to vote in America is fundamental to democratic process, and yet we see the right to vote in this country is continued challenged by the laws that disenfranchise citizens and limit the value of their vote. In the shadow of this ugly debate in Congress right now, it is really heartwarming and pleasing to see that you all can propose a resolution such as this to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, to be registered to vote, as well as to allow ex-felons to be included in this franchise of suffrage. Takoma Park is poised to emerge as a champion of our noblest democratic pursuits by expanding the franchise of suffrage. If 16 and 17-year-olds were actively represented as voters, elected officials would be more attentive to their unique needs and concerns. Currently, because the youth vote is not a big concern, public officials tend to overlook their needs. Few young people make the effort to participate in elections because platform promises ignore the issues that are important to them. So I certainly think that this is an issue whose time has come, and I would like to endorse this proposal. I'd like to thank those who proposed it, all the members of the City Council, including you, Mayor Williams. And I'd like to end by imploring each and every one of you all to give youths a broader voice, not just youths, but ex-felons as well, and to encourage civic engagement and to promote political participation for not only ex-felons, but also for the future generations who we make these laws, and these laws are going to affect in the long run. So thank you very much.
Rob Ritchie, Catherine Tunis, and Kevin O'Connor.
Good evening. I'm Rob Ritchie, 7401 Jackson Avenue. Thank you, Mayor Williams, and the City Council for moving forward on these charter amendments. I support all three of them, and I just want to emphasize that all three of them are important. We haven't heard a lot about same-day voter registration, but just this week, the Maryland legislature has sent to the governor a bill to do same-day voter registration in early voting, which is a really historic step. And it points to, I think, one very key point here, which is that what's on the table here really connects with policy that Maryland already has or is doing. We just made this move, or it looks like the governor will sign this change for same-day registration in early voting, and there are very strong arguments for that policy. It's worked great in places like North Carolina that went to that same policy recently, and I think it would be impactful too, as here, as the resolution spells out. And so we would be joining and going a little bit further, right? Not just doing it in early voting, but because we can administer it here on the day of election, we'll do it on the day of election too. That's good. Maryland already has 17-year-old voting in primaries. So next year, in 2014, in the primary for governor, members of Congress, 17-year-olds are going to be voting in that primary. 2008, February 2008, people 17 years old and 3 months were voting for president. You know, Barack Obama versus Hillary Clinton, Mike Huckabee versus John McCain. And it was embraced by both parties. It's a successful policy. No one's questioning it. We would be just going a little farther, right? And when we think about the voting age part of it, I think we should keep in mind that it's not everyone will vote at 16. Voting rights begins at 16 versus 18. But when you say it begins at 18, you might be almost 20 before you get the right to vote. So it's really that band of voting, right, that can be up to 20. And that's why all these studies show that giving a first vote to people who are 16 and 17, and the evidence from places that have done this, show that the first vote of people who are in their community, like so many of the young people here, at school where they can talk about it, and it's not going to be, I think, segregated by, you know, rich parts of town or so on. This will be, I think, a community-wide conversation. It can lead to a higher turnout, which it does, for a first vote for those people in that band, 16 to 17, than 1920. I also just wanted to make a plug for the part of the proposal that was initially part of the conversation, which is that we do not have a right to vote in the Constitution, an affirmative, clear right. We are needing one. There's a lot going on around the country that I think leads us to want that change. And the conversation that started with that, I think, led to these specific changes. And I think it also can commit us to make these changes really work. And part of that is the charter amendments are good, and then going further and doing the best we can to make them work, and going further to say, hey, 18% turnout of people over 18 is not enough either. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the comments.
Thank you. Catherine Tunis, Kevin O'Connor, Paul Munger.
I'm Catherine Tunis, and I'm reminded of when I was a kid, about 8 years old. I thought the perfect age to be was 17, because at that age you knew everything and your body had not yet started to deteriorate. I've learned a little bit since then, and so I am here tonight to oppose every one of the proposals. I admire the motivation, I think, that's behind them is to encourage youth to be interested in civic affairs and to learn about civic affairs and be prepared when they become an adult. But I do not believe that this is the correct approach. Responsible voting requires someone to be knowledgeable about the issues and the candidates, and to be able to vote with well-reasoned decisions. I do not believe that the youth of this area, no matter how involved they are, and I can see that they are very enthusiastic, and quite frankly, when have you ever had someone come up here and testify, look, please don't give me any more power? Everyone who wants power is going to ask for it. That does not mean that they are ready to handle it. And that does not mean that the other voters who have earned the right to vote would like to see their voting powers diluted. I raised the issue on a local list that the voting age was 21 until 1971. The reason it was lowered was because men were being sent to fight and die in Vietnam with absolutely no word about voting for the candidates who sent them to war. Are you saying that you want your 16-year-olds to go to war? Because if that's what you want, then let's have that conversation within that context. But this is not a gift. This is a responsibility. Insurance companies charge much higher rates for drivers up to age 25. There's a reason for that. It's because young people do not have the stability to be able to consistently make responsible decisions. And that is borne out by the number of car accidents that they have and the damage that they do. Similarly, there's a reason why people must register long enough time ahead of time to before the election so that they can be checked out, they can be knowledgeable about the issues. I do have some support for the early voting, but I don't think it's worth the cost. I have not seen any cost-benefit analysis on that. And I'm strongly opposed to doing any of these changes through council action. If you really feel this is important enough and you think the voters support it, put it at a referendum and let everybody have their say. Because I have not heard any support among my contemporaries for this proposal. And I do think young people should be educated. We should do that through the schools, which is paid by our county taxes, not our city taxes. And I want to commend the council for thinking outside the box on many issues, including this one, but I think you're a bit off base here. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin O'Connor, Paul Munger, and Stephen Saletta.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Williams. My name is Kevin O'Connor. I live at 7110 Maple Avenue. There's nothing I can really say that will overshadow anything my fellow supporters for all the propositions to voting age, registration, and penal convicts. But truly what you see here is people who are not going to be affected by this. We're here in support because we understand that at my age now, I'm 17, I will be turning 18 in several months, that I will not be affected if this proposal comes into change, that we all understand that this is an issue that is more important than just ourselves. As the woman who just came up here to speak, that we're not asking for power. We're asking for that you understand that this is a learning process. It's the same with cars, that we go through a lengthy process learning how to drive with our parents on our own provisional permit all the way up until we get our driver's license. It's the same issue people have raised, that in school, that we learn about our government system, we're able to use that knowledge and bring that into our own lives. And that quite often that it's the same issue with my brother, who is older, that When he went off to college, he didn't register to vote, he came back, he got a job, he didn't register to vote. He didn't have that opportunity to pretty much learn how to get into the system. And it's the same thing with convicts, that they don't have a chance to be able to be a part of a system because they aren't given that opportunity. And it's the same with the youth voters as well, that we aren't given an opportunity to learn. And I know that in my household alone, that if I had the opportunity to vote last year when I was 16 or 17, that my parents would sit me down and say, why are you voting for this person? Are you voting because I'm voting for Mayor Williams, or are you voting because you know he's the best? So,
all of the above.
All of the above.
What would you have done?
But it's a constant issue of we simply need to learn how to get into the system, and we want to be given that opportunity, and I believe that you have the ability to give us that opportunity to learn and become more responsible and integrated members of our society. Thank you.
My name is Paul Munger, and I live at 106 Tulip Avenue, right up the street. And I don't have that much to say, but I just wanted to say that I'm strongly in support of lowering the voting age to 16. And again, we're not asking for more power because it won't actually affect us. We just understand that it's an important issue, and that it would really benefit the citizens of Tacoma Park, and hopefully, if it expanded to other places, to be able to vote and for them to be inspired and to learn about politics and the voting process. Thank you.
Stephen Saletta, Lucas Ritchie, and Brendan Johns.
Hi, good evening. Steve Saletta from 13th Avenue in Carroll Highlands. I wanted to thank the mayor and the council for this opportunity to speak on this important issue this evening. I think the most, I really have no problem with felons who have served their term of imprisonment voting, but I'm a little bit concerned that there is a lack of check and balance in the existing charter language to make sure that felons are actually serving their parole or probation as assigned. I think that that's something that could be looked at. The second issue I wanted to address was regarding to, reducing the voting age to 16. So I would put the following question to the council. Is participation in city elections an opinion poll, or is it a true right as described in Article 4 of the Maryland Constitution? If it is a right, then that right must be enforceable by law. If I'm a 16-year-old and I'm grounded on the day of election, do I have standing to sue my parents for depriving me of my right to vote? Currently, somebody under the age of 18 does not have the right to bring suit without an adult without an adult suing on their behalf. So I guess my question is, how can we have a right without the legal enforcement of that right? And does the city council have the authority to create such a right? That parent has either exercised their legal authority to act as the guardian of their child, or they've really violated the civil rights of that child. They're two completely different things, and this charter amendment has an impact on that. So again, I would just close by saying, either Tacoma Park City elections are a serious and legitimate exercise of the authority vested in the people of the state of Maryland by the state constitution, or it's an opinion poll. It can't be one or the other, and I think that this proposed charter amendment has an impact on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lucas Ritchie already spoke, right? So Brendan Johns, Wendy Jason, and Jerry Cowan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Brandon Johns. I live at 423 Browning Court, Tacoma Park, Maryland. Okay, good to see you as well, Councilmember Daniels. Sorry. One, I'd like to say a great job of all the youth for kind of explaining their pieces on. I think they did a great job. To let you know where I come from, I work for Making a New United People inside the Rec Center, actually, and I also work for the NAACP. And I'm actually in support of all the proposals, to be quite honest. There's two in particular that I'm going to kind of talk about, and it'll be real quick because actually the young man and the young man over there and the initial lady to go spoke very well about the first one speak up, which is expanding the voting rights to felons. I think you guys all know the historic kind of desperate treatment of felons, and I think of all areas of all cities to kind of work in, Tacoma Park should be a city that can see how this disparate treatment has affected communities, and how this is not a practice we want to necessarily continue. So, I mean, I really don't want to go too far into that because they really did explain it and all the historic backgrounds and reasons why we think we should go forward and pass this measure. I think it's extremely important. So I'm not going to spend much more time on that. I'm actually going to the second part, which is expanding voting rights to the 16-year-olds throughout. So I'm also in support of this, as I stated. The main issue I have with this is, and the only issue, I would like to have it so this education is spread, so we have an education piece beforehand about the reasons for voting, right, and the worth of voting, and not just to the kids who are in AP classes and things like that and are doing well and who are very interested in government, but to all the youth, right? Because, I mean, this is a hard measure, but to all the youth, because as you guys stated before me, certain parents are more politically active. I mean, that right there is going to have a bigger effect on what youth come out. So we don't want to say just the youth that have parents who are politically active come out and vote. We want to say, no, all youth in the area to vote. So, I mean, that is something I think, as far as that's concerned, I think we should think about how we can roll that out, to have a large education piece so we can make sure it's to all the youth and not just, like you said, the ones who are doing well and pay close attention, the ones who come out today and did a great job, but to all the youth in the Tacoma Park area. So that's actually everything I have to say for tonight. Thank you, guys, and take care.
Thank you.
Mr. Johns, would you include incarcerated felons?
I personally would. As for my position, I wasn't sure exactly how far the Tacoma Park City and Council was going to go with this, but I would, though, yes.
Thank you.
Wendy Jason, Jerry Cowan, and Alex Karoknas Police.
Wendy left.
Okay, Wendy left. Jerry Cowan?
Good evening, Mayor Williams, the councilman. My name is Jerry Calvin. I live at 149 Ritchie Avenue, and I'm an ex-offender. I spent 32 years incarcerated, and I just been out a month as of today. I support the bill to allow ex-offenders to vote. And I also support the bill to allow teenagers to vote, because I know had I had someone to validate my opinions and my concerns when I was 17 years old, I may not have went to prison. And so I support that. I feel good just being able to participate in this type of setting. I feel like I'm a part of something. The recidivism rate is so high because ex-offenders, when they come out, they are shunned. Even when they want to show society that they changed, society turned their face on them. They don't give them no help. They don't allow them to be a part of anything. So when you give us the opportunity to say we are part of this society, our opinions matter, you embrace us and you give us that incentive to want to do better, to want to do good. But when you turn your back on us and you say that you're in the community, but you are not a part of the community, we see you, but we don't see you, then that makes us feel bad. All I want to do is, me personally, I want to help. I want to do what I can to make Tacoma Park a better place. I want to do what I can to show that, the recidivism rate don't have to be high if everybody get involved. It's a African proverb say that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a community to help somebody that's coming out of prison. It takes the community to do that, not just one person. It takes everybody to do that. Change only occurs when people want to change. That's how the community survives. You know, when you turn your back and a person come out and you say, okay, well, we don't want you. Then they commit another crime. You say, well, you know, they committed another crime. That's because you didn't want to help them in the first place, and they ain't have no other alternative. But I'm just happy that I got people that's supporting me. But I support the bill, and I'm asking you to allow me to vote my opinion. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Alex Karokas.
It's Karakne Palace. It's a mouthful. So I don't live in Tacoma Park currently, but I am in the process of buying a place in Ward 5. So hopefully I will be soon. I served as executive director of the National Youth Rights Association for 12 years. And this issue is something that I care about deeply and have worked on for many, many years. And I don't have any prepared remarks, so I've brought a couple of notes. But about 10 years ago, we were trying to get the voting age lower. We were working, I was talking to city council members in Tacoma Park 10 years ago, and it looks like there's been some changeover since then. But there was a lot of support, and we did talk to a lot of community members, young and old alike, and we saw a great deal of support from all parts of the community for lowering the voting age at the time. And one city councilwoman who I spoke with brought a very interesting point up that I hadn't actually considered before. She mentioned that Tacoma Park, allows non-citizen residents to vote in city elections, and she mentioned that she was kind of discouraged that not enough non-citizen residents were turning out to vote, and she thought that lowering the voting age would be actually a really good method of encouraging the non-citizen residents to vote, because the younger kids, the teens have more roots in the community, are more likely to speak the language, are more comfortable with the government and the functionings of the government, and she said that those two policies could work together very well. So I thought that was a really interesting point. And I also want to just make the point really quick. The woman spoke earlier about the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18 because of the Vietnam War and people were being sent to war. And Rob Ritchie brought up a really good point that presidential, and obviously this wouldn't affect a presidential election, but just speaking broadly, that policies take time to be enacted and take time to come about. So I know many people who were not old enough to vote in 2000 between Bush and Gore, who were later sent to Iraq 3 years later. So having the right to vote earlier really is a really good way to do it. And I think Tacoma Park has just a fantastic opportunity here to make history. Like I said, I've worked on this for many years, and I fielded questions from around the world from people interested in this issue, because the entire world is looking at lowering the voting age, and nowhere in this country has it been done yet. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity for Tacoma Park to be the first and to be a leader and to make history on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the extent of the people who signed up. If there's anybody who hasn't spoken who wishes to do so, if you can come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Matthew Ling. I'm an attorney at Joseph Greenwald and Lake, where I specialize in civil rights law. First, wanted to mention might be a drafting error in 603A. It reads, any resident of the city who is a United States citizen, is at least 16 years of age, and is eligible to register to vote in the state of Maryland, I assume that precludes 16 and 17-year-olds, so that is, I guess, inartfully worded. That might need to be changed. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the voting rights for felons and people who are 16 and 17. I think you've heard a lot about cost-benefit analysis and utilitarian arguments. I think any conversation that begins with those is fundamentally misconceived. I think that the premise that we should begin with is one person, one vote. And I know there's a lot of arguments about, well, where do we draw the line? And to which I would respond, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. With regard to the proposed changes for the felon laws, I don't think they go far enough. I think they should include, I simply don't think you should be disenfranchised at all, whether you have felon status, whether you're incarcerated, whether you're on parole. To put that in perspective, 5.85 million Americans annually are denied the right to vote. Of those numbers, given the racial disparities in our criminal justice system, that's 1/13th, one out of every 13 African Americans are unable to vote. That's 13% of black men. And lastly, there's a new age requirement to be a council member and a mayor. I just think that's unnecessary. I don't know if that, I don't know. I just not quite sure why that was added in the first place. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi, Mary Rooker, Ward 2. I'm here as an individual, but also I think it's interesting that Rob mentioned that both the two ruling parties have supported this proposal, and I'm sure my libertarian friends would agree, and I can tell you the Green Party definitely agrees with all three proposals. You know, the new Jim Crow book is, I just really want to encourage you to read it. It's an eye-opener. I read it about, 8 months ago, and it talks about the issue in a depth that I can't possibly present, but we have the largest prison population of any country on the planet, and nobody is even eating our dust. I mean, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. It's a shame on our flag and our nation. And no other civilized country, and they do see us as barbaric for our drug laws, none of them treat it as a criminal justice issue. They treat it not as a crime, but as the health issue that it really is. And the laws, the drug laws, the way they're applied in this country are racist and classist. And if you think the death penalty looks bad, looks in terms of how racist it looks mild compared to our drug laws. So this is a racial justice issue. This is a class issue. Please read the new Jim Crow to get a fuller understanding of why you really need to pass this proposal for those who are out of prison. And I haven't polled my fellow Greens, but I would imagine that we would favor strongly the right to vote for incarcerated felons as well. I don't have any issue at all with that. And Laura spoke eloquently. She also works very hard with prisoners, so she would know that better than I. I also want to speak in favor of the youth. You know, we heard a lot of the same kind of arguments back in the 70s when the voting age was lowered from 21 to 18, and I haven't really heard anything new. And as to the maturity level issue, I hope we don't apply any of this to the adults who have the right to vote, because I have to tell you, many adults are voting for very immature reasons. I try to talk to them on the issues. As a very active Green, I know the issues very well, and they're just voting for the stupidest reasons. And they're often just following whatever the sample ballot is for their chosen party and not really even looking at the candidates or showing up at forums. It's a little frightening to me. So I see lots of engaged youth. Maybe that's just here in Tacoma Park. Our youth are better. I don't know. But they are often more aware of many issues than a lot of the adults. So I just want to say that. And finally, I just want to encourage the council to expand these proposals and have the task force look at opening up our political system to include centrist parties as well as leftist parties, because that's the other difference. We have the most narrow political system in the first world, and it's a little embarrassing. So let's be proud.
My name is Ed Edwards, and I'm a resident of Ward 5, and I prepared a list, and the big question seems to be lowering the voter age. So this is, I'll send this on to you, but the bare bones as far as voter age is, I applaud the notion of getting our youngsters more involved in the civic process. They are, to my mind, more open to entertaining different ideas, of arguments, and not hesitant to be vocal about it. They do, however, lack the seasoning, not necessarily the maturity, but rather whatever experience is gained when pragmatism butts up against idealism in an adult world. And adults face unique challenges and responsibilities which cannot be fathomed until you're there. But what I would like to say to the young people who are here is that voting is probably the least effective way to make change and to make things happen. When you get a ballot, the choices have already been limited. Through organization and lobbying, you get to format the choices. You get to work toward having the questions reflect good versus bad as opposed to bad versus less bad. And getting the council to hear your arguments this evening is a sign of how effective that is. So as far as I'm concerned, you won. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor Williams and member of the County Council. My name is Michaela Sales, and I'm honored to be here in place of Ben Feshbach, Youth Chair from Montgomery County Youth Democrats, advocating for the students of Tacoma Park. Here with me tonight are a number of students, each with their own story, but I'll let you tell theirs. Almost 2 years ago, County Executive I. Leggett and the County Council were proposing the imposition of a curfew. The county held numerous hearings about the matter, and the number of teenagers that came out to voice their opposition was not only shocking to the county council, it was only a fraction of the power of the youth voice. Then Montgomery Blair student Lee Muskin Purett encouraged hundreds of students to exercise the First Amendment freedoms of speech and protest through testimony and rallies. Our voice was not listened to at first because if we couldn't vote, then a county council's member re-election prospects would be harmed. So we brought more students out to protest, testify, and contact the county council member. The curfew proposed was defeated. Just 2 weeks ago, the people I saw at the Supreme Court fighting for same-sex marriage were more than any other age group, young. Students last fall stormed the campaign offices of Marylanders for Marriage Equality and helped pass marriage equality in November. Over the next few days, expect to see teenagers who have read our school system's entire budget come out to support its adoption by the Montgomery County Council so our school system remains on top and our younger brothers and sisters get the education they deserve. My point today is that time and time again, teens have proven their capacity and desire to engage in political activity. Teenagers are becoming more and more aware of what is going on in the world, and teenagers put that knowledge to good use. Most of the peers here are from Montgomery Blair High School, the largest school in the county. However, if you walk into any county school, high school, on any given afternoon, you'll see a plethora of activity. Sport teams training for games and matches, language and culture clubs encouraging cultural awareness, and tutoring clubs where academically strong students take their time out of their own day to help those who are struggling. Montgomery County students are active in their community in one way or another. The students who are here tonight are no exception. If you can trust them on your roads, we can surely trust them with the vote. I argue to you strongly considering allow them to be even more effective community citizens of Tacoma Park by lowering the voting age to 16. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Hart, and I run a project called Promote Our Vote, and I work in Tacoma Park, but I live in Silver Spring, a few moments away. I just wanted to make a few points about lowering the voting age to 16. Bringing more people to the table is the best way to strengthen democracy. One great idea for cities to take action is to extend voting rights to people turning 16, just as many states allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries. When I first heard about the proposal to lower the voting age, I was very surprised, but then I did some research and I talked to some 16-year-olds. And I learned that lowering the voting age is probably one of the best ways to increase voter turnout. Voter turnout is particularly low among youth populations. That's 18 to like 29. But studies showed that voting, it's habit forming. Once you vote, you're more likely to continue to vote. And if youth are given the opportunity to vote in their communities where they have roots, where their parents can encourage them to vote, where their communities can encourage them to vote, their schools, and they're more likely to cast their first vote and continue to vote and make a lifelong habit. The voting age at 18 is actually not a particularly good idea. Most people are moving away from home. They're in transition. They're changing in a lot of ways. Starting to vote at 16 sets up a situation where they can build stability and they can start a lifelong habit of voting. I think it's a matter of fairness. With the minimum voting age at 16, some citizens actually won't have their first opportunity to vote until they're 20. I personally wasn't able to vote until I was 20. So I think that it's a great idea to lower the voting age. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Katrina Moncure. I live in Germantown, Maryland, and I'm the secretary and board member of the National Youth Rights Association. And obviously, I'm in support of lowering the voting age, and I think just about everyone here has covered most of the main points already. But I will add a few things. One, there's a very nice quote by Susan B. Anthony, which goes, how can consent of the governed be given if the right to vote be denied? Well, she was talking about women, obviously. But it applies also to teenagers when you consider how many restrictions, like the person before me or two people before me talked about the curfew. That was an example of a law that affected only those who were too young to vote, so conveniently couldn't actually have a say that way as to whether it got enacted, and there's many other examples. And the other thing is that Tacoma Park isn't really alone in an attempt to lower the voting age. Lowell, Massachusetts, is looking at lowering the voting age to 17 for their city. Several countries in Europe, you got Austria, you got parts of Switzerland, parts of Germany. The UK has been considering it. Scotland enacted it last year, I believe. Brazil, you can vote at 16. So this isn't an unheard of thing, and several more countries in Europe and even in Africa have considered it. Parts of Canada have considered it. It looks like this is the trend. This is where things are going. And Tacoma Park, Maryland has a chance to be the first place that does this. So Tacoma Park has a chance to be on the right side of history. That if trends continue, Lowell lowers their voting age, and who knows who else. We've had several attempts in Berkeley, California back in 2005. There was an attempt to lower the voting age in Florida from one of my organization's chapters in 2008. There was one in Nanuet, New York in 2009, I believe. This is growing steam. It's a little slow right now, but it's picking up steam, and this is the way things are going. And we got plenty of very very intelligent young people here, and plenty more out there who would like to have a say. And obviously any questions over how informed or mature they are don't hold water, because we don't actually have that requirement for voting. We just set an age limit and say that's it. As for any concerns over whether or not they would just vote the same as their parents, well, my answer to that one is Well, so what? I think most people vote the same way as their parents. I'm going to turn 30 next month, yet my father and I both voted for Obama last year. So by that logic, you would think I should not have voted because I voted the same way as my father. So that's about all I have to say. Again, you have a chance to make history here, about big strides for the rights of young people, and I strongly encourage you to take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Abby Conrad, and I'm a new resident of Tacoma Park. I wanted to say that I also don't think the portion about felons goes far enough, and I think that everyone who's incarcerated or who's committed a felony should have the right to vote. I also wanted to point out that the arguments we've heard about maturity, level of education, and lack of experience are the same type of arguments that were made in opposition to the suffrage movements for African Americans and women. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll note for the record that there were a number of comments that were submitted to the clerk, and we've received copies of those, and they are a part of the official public hearing record as well. I call this public hearing to a close, and we have a scheduled item on next week's agenda to consider this charter amendment. Thank you all very much, and we'll take a short break. Started.
Thanks for your comments, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Clear the decks.
We have the next agenda item, which is the report from the Recreation Committee, and we have 4 members of the Recreation Committee here. Welcome.
All 4. But there's many more of us. Just 4 tonight. Ready? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, staff. The Recreation Committee is here to give, I think, very positive report on the ongoing activities of both the committee and the staff. We came to you last year to push for expanded work with teens and with seniors and with gardening, and hope with the great hope that we might even be able to do somewhat of an international world festival. At the time, we weren't really sure of the name of it, but it has boiled down to the Celebrate Tacoma Festival, which is on track for next month, May 19th, from 1 to 5 p.m. over at Ed Wilhelm Field. We've got, I think, a fabulous lineup. We're still tweaking a few things there. But everything that we had talked to you about last year, I think, has really blossomed. I think one of the most positive aspects that has been really growing with both the committee and the staff is a real wonderful partnership. We've been getting great support from the staff, and just a couple of things I just wanted to focus on. We'd asked for the enrichment and development with the teens and with the seniors, and they did a great job with survey work with, I think, the boomers we were called at the time, and they're working to expand the program for seniors and some of us who might not consider ourselves or would not like to consider ourselves yet seniors, and working on those programs. So
every council raises their hand.
So
every council member, everybody raised their hand.
No, we're the experienced.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I've been, older is always 10 years older than you are. That's what I think of.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
So we also talked last year about working in partnership with other organizations, other groups in the community. The Celebrate Tacoma event is being done very much in cooperation with the Tacoma United that planned one of the earlier MLK Day celebrations and did it again this year. So we've been working with that group and have actually stolen a couple of their members and incorporated them into the committee. This group, some of you may have heard of. There's this woman who calls herself the Play Lady, and we've managed to get her to help with a few things in Tacoma Park and having play days, which seem to be happening every weekend. I believe Pat's plans are for it to happen every month, once a month throughout the whole year. And they just had a very successful one yesterday on Spruce Avenue, closing off Spruce and doing a play day there. The youth garden has been going very well. I have some props here to hand out. We did some gardening yesterday at the newest garden right in front of the mosaic at the library. We even got Kay out to help on this and supervise and manage, with this group you need a lot of management. And that's going very well. We did a planning yesterday. We've been creating soil out of the horrible clay that was there. So I know that Terry, Councilmember Siemens, and Councilmember Mayle had expressed a strong desire for us not just go buy new soil, but to try and create some of our own. So we've been working on that with a number of the members. We had 4 great kids with us yesterday working on the garden, and a very dedicated group of worm finders, because we needed worms for the garden. So we had these 4 kids digging up worms like crazy, with most of the parents kind of hanging back. So that went very, very well. We have upcoming service days at New Hampshire Recreation, where we're going to be doing gardening there. Do you want to talk a little bit about the garden, about the project there at New Hampshire?
There's 3 things going on. One is that there's one of the community youth gardens is at the New Hampshire Rec Center. It's in the front, and it also was the beneficiary of some over the winter in-place composting into the soil to build the soil there. So that went really well, and we're looking forward to the spring and the summer and a good partnership with the folks who work over there. Then this facility and its landscaping could use a little help, and the staff there asked the committee for some help. So we've got 2 work days coming up. One is April 27th to do landscaping, not gardening, vegetable gardening, but actually putting in some plantings to spruce the place up. And it's a combination of folks donating and Maryland Capital Planning kicking in a little bit, I think, and the city kicking in and volunteers kicking in, and all together it's going to happen. The other one is in early June, a little more challenging, painting the interior. Have to wait till the dance group is out of there on a Saturday in order to be able to do it on a weekend. So we're trying to build some bridges to the folks who live in the apartment buildings over there, the condos, see if we can get some of them out. And there's a futsal league that shows up and plays there, and we're going to try to get those guys involved. So New Hampshire Avenue.
New Hampshire Avenue, so we're working on that too. Just another thing that was kind of interesting that Lou pointed out to me today is that we had 616 kids in the Winter Basketball League this year, and this is the 5th year of the basketball league, and it's something that I think the committee members, and particularly some former committee members who now are on the council, should be very proud of, because this was very much an effort that the committee kind of pulled together and said, we really want to get the basketball league going again. And
what was the count on that again?
616. 6-1, so which is great. A great number of kids. A lot of volunteers going in on that, and again, the partnership with the staff in recruiting volunteer coaches and in doing the training has been great. We're also just very pleased that
well, and in fact, that's really handed off now.
Yeah, we really have handed that off, and part of that also is it's been able to be expanded and done because we're pleased that the recreation staff is pretty much at full staffing right now, which is great. They had a very successful Easter egg roll. A number of us were over at that, shooting pictures and getting involved and things like that. So that synergy between the volunteers, both on the committee and in the greater community, I think, is much greater than it's ever been, and that's something I feel very strongly about. That is about it. Is there anything I'm missing? We just hope that the council will continue to fund programs that combine that citizen activism and volunteerism, like the Play Days, that has become a great partnership. Greg and the staff and the recreation have been very good at kind of working with Pat and kind of taking over more and more of that, and having like the Winter Play Day, which is a great success and really turns out, I think, a great showing of the diversity in Tacoma Park. So that's great. We hope you will all join us, if you can, on May 19th from 1 to 5 for the Celebrate Tacoma. It's going to be a great lineup of music, some arts and crafts, a lot of games. We've got games from around the world. We're even going to have, I think, a couple of tug of war programs going on, which, of course, in Tacoma Park we call, playful conflict resolution using rope. But I think that's going to be hopefully a great kickoff, and we would like to see continued support from the City Council to do that hopefully next year and continue this on and build it every year. Any additions? No? Any subtractions? Any questions?
Could also be called a peace poll.
Could be the peace poll.
It all sounds great.
Okay. Any questions from anyone on the?
Councilmember Daniels Cohen.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I saved.
Okay, then you're out of order.
I saved my hugest gold stars tonight for the Recreation Committee and the department because I can remember back in the day, and we're going back maybe 7 years ago, when we all, when the actual committee was resurrected like a phoenix and started all over again. And we did, and Jay and I were talking about this yesterday, we did the pie in the sky. I don't know if Gregory was there, I don't know if Eric was there, but we did pie in the sky because the council had just had the opportunity to go visit Greenbelt and got to look at their facilities and went, OMG, and look at what we've got. And at this point, I'm not sure, the only part of this building you all aren't using for something in recreation is that underneath part where all the dirt is, and I was trying to figure out a way to get that used too. My hat is off. The partnerships have just been remarkable. Partnering up with the working together with the department and the committee, it's just been it's fabulous. 616 participants in the youth basketball league makes me cry because we were initially told that we wouldn't get 20 people, and the first year we got I think we had about 350, 400, something like that, and to build it from there, especially including volunteers, getting the city going. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. I mean, I'm so excited about, you said what you were going to do, and then you did it. And you're still doing it. And I think the one thing you forgot to mention were your ward, it's not just the Recreation Department, this is in partnership with Tacoma United plus the ward walks. The ward walks are really important because people don't know about the history of, the real history of the city, the demographic of it, the diversity of it. Pat's play days really show, and all the different flavors of Tacoma Park show up for the play days. It's not just one set or another set, it's everybody. This time I can't just turn kids loose with balloons on Celebrate Tacoma because the sky's too high. But what a blast that was in the winter to just have a room with 30 balloons and any kids who wanted to come and play and not even really tell them what to do. They just did it, had fun, went with their parents, left. The parents had to drag them out of the room. It was pretty remarkable. It was,
and I think a year ago, there were a number of us said, the teen lounge is not being used very much. And now you go by the teen lounge and it's packed. And that's a real sign of, I think, how responsive the staff has been to pushing for things like that. It's just been great.
I can't say enough about the staff. I mean, it's remarkable, the partnership, the willingness. I've known it as a physical education major and recreator what it takes to do this kind of work, and it's 24/7. You don't really get a day off. You have to be around whenever there's a program, and it's been remarkable. Gregory's done an exceptional job with his staff and in hiring and shifting and changing things. It's really exciting.
It's been great all along, and Susie's help with getting Miss Utility to check to make sure we weren't going to electrocute ourselves when we were putting in the new garden.
The garden
was a great help and made that possible too. So,
that was our first. That spot was our first choice for garden, and we didn't get that one, so we had to take what we got, and now we have two, actually there's 3 gardens because there's also the regeneration of the facility over on New Hampshire Avenue, which I know isn't the most beautiful building in the world, but it's functional and it's there and it's usable, and just to get people to notice
and people use it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people use it. There is life across New Hampshire Avenue. There are people who live over there and enjoy. Ward 6 lives.
Councilmember Schultz is sitting here going, and it's taken you till now to know this?
Oh, no, I noticed it. How many years ago did I notice that? How many years ago did I start?
I'm sorry, I was asleep when you said that.
I started touting, we have a gym. Everybody said we don't have a gym. I said, we have a gym. We have a gym. So we just need to use it and let people know that it's there, and it's a good facility. So, and John Webster, of course, is is very special, and Mr. Bayer and all the staff over there as well.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I appreciate, all the hard work you guys are doing. Basketball League, the Gardens, the Celebrate Tacoma Festival. But what I want to know is there an academic component? Is there a remedial class program for kids? Is there some type of scholarly club for kids, a chess club? Is there something other than playing sports or these other activities? Is there something that is going to push these kids academically?
The teen program, starting at the top and working our way down. The teen program over the past few months, a year, that the department is running has really shifted. I think some of its emphasis to include more of those kinds of programs. But it does take a little time to get them up and running. So that's a new thing, and it's something that you can look into more with the department. But it's something the committee really has wanted to see for some time. And that's teens. Then you work your way down, middle school, and elementary school. And what we're trying to do is to have more programs besides sports that get in all the kinds of kids that are interested in other things besides sports, so that when they get to the more enrichment, if you will, activities, when they're a little older, they'll be already familiar with recreation programs, and they'll be in the fold, so to speak. So I don't know if that answers the question. More would be good, in my personal opinion.
I think some of it too was.
But we got to go back to, we didn't have a lot to start with, so we're moving in that direction.
I think some of it was really building up the team program to get the kids to come in, and I think Alicia has really worked to kind of get them more involved. And I think a lot of that discussion about how are you doing in school, how are classes going, are taking place a little bit more informally than classroom. I think the kids, they get out of school, they come to the community center now. As a number of you have recognized, community center now is packed almost every night. And that's a good sign of building community and pulling kids together. We had talked about working with Christopher King and trying to figure out some process for, could we do some trainings around, budgeting and economics and things like that. And I think that is something we'd love to see. It hasn't happened yet, but I think that may be a future stage for work, particularly with teens. I think Recreation's been doing some new skill building with kids and computer usage that I think kind of has some of that built into it, but certainly more can be done.
I read every year a report done on the achievement gap.
Yeah.
And if we have these kids here, and if we're not trying to fix the problem, then the achievement gap is never going to close. Thank you.
When you guys get to the budget and the recreation director comes up, you might ask about his interest in expanding in that area, and you might ask about partnerships with things like the Man Up program. Again, trying to expand into that area, and not at the expense of traditional sports. But
I'm glad you brought up Man Up, because I have supported Man Up, but I'm just one council member.
Yeah, is it fair to say that the committee? I mean, we haven't voted on this, but I think it's pretty fair to say that the sense of the committee is to do more of this kind of stuff.
Hi, just to add, I've a couple of times recently have found myself down at the computer center or the library after school. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of teens in both of those places. Phil Shapiro goes from one person to another helping out. And I know we're talking about recreation, but that's part of this building. And so they're here and they are getting help, but specific programs, that could be the next step.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. I think there was an SAT class this year, and they've been working on
First one.
and the teen council they're trying to build up. So I think we're moving in the right direction with this, and I think the council kind of making suggestions or asking staff what more can we do about working on the achievement gap, I think is a great thing to do, a great thing to push.
And I'll just point out that there's been more than one person at the dais who has been advocating in that area. Councilmember Schultz.
We just had a room full of teenagers wanting us to pass a bill to give them the ability to vote. And it's interesting is that here we are, next item on the agenda, talking about recreation, which you would think would be something of interest to teenagers, and every last one of them is gone. So
They may be working on homework and trying to deal with the achievement gap.
I
on
suppose.
that.
Yeah. So let's just cut all the rec programs. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I get to is that to what extent do you get the input from the kids that the recreation department is flooded with? I know that the programs are getting more and more participants, which is great. But my feeling is that as we were just talking about here, is that there's so much more that needs to be done to help the disadvantaged kids. That group wasn't represented here in the last hour. At least not to a large extent. And these are the kids that are in the New Hampshire Tower building, a lot of them, where there's a lot of gangs. We've heard from the police department. And I guess what I'm just saying is that I'm concurring with the feeling that sports are great, and but I just would. So the question is, how do you kind of find out from the kids themselves, or are you able to find out from the kids themselves what it is they would like to be able to have, other than sort of the usual sort of things?
I mean, I think that's really a job for Greg and the staff who are working directly with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the mentoring that they do, again, it's not formal class structure and working on that, but I think the difference between 3-4 years ago in the number of high school and younger kids who came into the community center at a given time was much, much lower. And to see the teen center, to see that being used, to see the staff in there interacting with the students, it gives the students a chance, I think, to ask questions about growing up, about what decisions the staff made as adults, that I think is a very, very valuable component of education. And I think, we have always talked in the Recreation Committee and with the City Council about not duplicating efforts done by other areas and supplementing and trying to figure out how to do that. And I think the recreation program, it uses sports to kind of bring people together and to build community. And I think that that's an important thing to acknowledge.
Oh, no question. I mean, and I mean, the transformation, I know when I first got on the City Council 4 years ago, there was a lot of disenchantment with the Department of Recreation. And there was disenchantment on your committee and frustration as well, and sort of, I think it was Howard that said that we sort of feel like we're chasing our tails, to quote him. That seems like a tremendous amount has changed in the intervening time. So we don't need to go back over all of that. So I understand the progress that's been made. I'm just thinking more going forward. And the Man Up program to me is like one of the greatest things that I think we can do to help the kids that we need to help.
And I think those are the partnerships that need to be expanded. I think you're right.
Yeah, that sort of thing. The other area of inquiry I have is that I know that we all know that the condition of the building, and I'm grateful that the committee is going to try and do a fix-up on that. You know, some paint, and that'll help. A little makeup and cosmetic stuff never hurts. But it's still a building that's must be pushing capacity, if not exceeding capacity. I don't know how John manages to squeeze so much out of that building. It's incredible. The guy's amazing, and you know, we need to be thinking about the big picture, about how we're going to get a new building. I know the planning staff here in the city is concerned about that and wants to see that being developed into kind of finding a developer who might be able to build a rec center along with other stuff. But I think we need more advocacy in that area to be pushing for a better facility. If it isn't going to come from you guys, I think it's disappointing. I mean, I'm an advocate for it. And we've gotten the Department of Public Works yard renovated, and we're all proud of that. But the library and this building, this rec building, are the two orphans in the city that, they're way overused. They're such popular places. People love the heck out of them, and there's so much more that we know can be done there. And there's only so much space and so many hours in the day. So I just would encourage you kind of to try to think about that and see if you can't do some advocacy in that area.
And we've had a number of discussions with the rec staff about this, and I remember, I think a couple of years ago, I was talking to John, and I said, so what does this building really need? He said, well, first, it'd be nice to tear it down and start again. And two, he said, it'd be nice if we could bring the bathrooms up to maybe like 1960s standards. And he said, showers, things like that. And I think it is hard because I think it's a big lobbying effort to try and say, could we get the county to rebuild New Hampshire Rec, because it is overused. I think the staff does an amazing job with it, but it is what it is.
Gosh, if young people want to lobby and, like we were saying, we want to be able to participate, there's your constituency. Thank you.
And I'll just add a quick comment that I think the secondary teen room is actually the lobby, and the staff who man the desk perform a lot of work with everybody who hangs out there, because every time I'm in the building during the week and I come through there, there's always a whole lot going on and a whole lot of people.
Okay.
Councilmember Siemens, and then I'll check with Councilmember Mayle if he has any comments.
Well, thank you all for coming here again tonight and for bringing this good news. It's always an emotional time for me when the Recreation Committee comes here, and often when the Recreation staff comes. And in the past, it's been emotional in kind of a negative way, and tonight I have to join Councilmember Daniels-Cohen in crying with pleasure after seeing the way the building here is used, seeing the activity at the New Hampshire Avenue Rec Center, and just hearing your report. It's really heartwarming to see how far we've come in such a relatively short amount of time. And I just thank you all so much for the work that you've put in, and I would have to say in the endurance that you've shown by fighting through. It was a struggle to get to where we are today, and if you all had given up, we probably wouldn't be here where we are. And I also thank Gregory and his staff for his fine work and to bring the changes that we see in the Recreation Department. I had a couple of questions. One is, it says on my blue sheet here, the committee will provide a report to the City Council. Is this an oral report, or do you have something for us?
We decided to do an oral report.
Okay. I'm disappointed in that because I've seen some of your past reports, and they usually include meat, something we can put our hands around, especially as we go into the budget time. What I haven't heard so much from you tonight is I've heard that we aren't where we want to be. There's a few things we'd like to do, but what can the council do? What should the council be doing to get us to the next level?
Well, continued funding.
Continue.
Targeted funding for some of these new things,
Yeah,
like
I
you
think,
did last year.
And I think it's important that, the areas where we've expanded with the teens and with, kind of looking at the seniors and the boomers and how do you figure that out, I think that's, sometimes we do these programs and we kind of go, wow, this is a great success. Okay, let's move to something else.
Right.
And I think you've got to continue funding for that. I think the partnership with Tacoma Plays and with Tacoma United to do Celebrate Tacoma, that's something that we can do that builds community, brings out more volunteers, gets more people involved. The painting cleanup day at New Hampshire Rec is nice in that we'll get a group of people and some teens there to work on New Hampshire Rec, but it's also a group of people that we can say, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could lobby the county to get New Hampshire Rec replaced? And so you build a group of lobbyists that go along with that. And so I think that that's the type of synergy we want to see continuing. I think Councilmember Smith's admonition to say, what more can we do in terms of achievement gap, in terms of really looking at who needs even more help is something that we would love feedback from you on. I think we need more feedback from the staff on to figure out what are some new targets we might weave into that. Because some of that's not expensive stuff to do. Some of it's stuff we can do with volunteers and others.
Right, and of course, the one area that I have wanted to see for a long time and it hasn't gotten much traction yet is in the area of vocational training for some of the young people. I would, and some of the not so young people, but I guess I see you all doing great in building these partnerships and getting programs going and that. And I guess if I have an uneasy feeling, it's how strategic you are in trying to decide where do we want to be downstream, and are these things getting us in that direction, or are we merely increasing the activity and the number of programs, which is a good thing. It's a great thing. But I also think the committee is the one that kind of represents the council in working with the city staff on developing a strategic path that we can follow. That doesn't deserve an answer, but
I think to some degree it's a mix between being opportunistic, figure out where can we do stuff, where do we have the energy to do stuff, and also looking at some of our long-term goals that we've done. When we did the survey a couple years ago, what does that tell us? What do we need? The concern about teens, and I think hiring Alicia to really work on the teens. I think that's something that we just started this not that long ago to really push more on the teens, and I think that's starting to take off. I think there's more she's going to plan to do and more that can be done.
Right.
So.
And I just want to end by recognizing the fact that I know you guys put in a whole lot of time to get us to where we are, and I do appreciate that. And I don't mean to say that you need to double your effort,
but if you want to, go ahead.
Okay. And you'll double our pay.
But I just right. Well, exactly. I will vote to double your pay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mayo, any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Williams. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I really appreciate your coming and speaking to us tonight, and I remember a similar presentation a year or so ago. I'll be brief just because it's always harder to talk from a distance, but I agree with many of Councilmember Seaman's comments. I'm also really interested in which I think is related to his comments, just how we keep making a program that's more effective. Councilmember Schultz mentioned the idea of what a teens need, trying to figure out where the demand is. So I'm really interested in how we can keep improving that and keeping making sure that either for teens or for seniors and other groups we serve, how we make sure we're really getting the the very best programs. I'd also just add that when I almost universally when I get feedback from the community on recreation programs, it's always extremely warm and thankful. People really, again, almost without exception, people really appreciate the services that we provide, the services that you help us provide, and so just thank you for being part of that.
And I'll say Councilmember Mail, you would appreciate the camera work while you were talking. It showed your place at the dais and your name. Councilmember Smith, did you have something else?
Yes, thank you. You guys mentioned that you're talking to the. Are you actually having conversations with the county about renovating the building on your?
No, we haven't.
John has been trying to talk to them. We haven't yet as a count. Well, we sent a letter.
We did
last
send
year,
we
but
sent a letter
not
last year
recently.
about it, but we have not actively worked on renovations. And I mean, it's such a weird place because it's being owned by the county, run by the staff, and our sense was a little bit in limbo on this. And so the direction we took is, well, how do we at least make it a little bit prettier? And so that was the effort that we decided to put in.
As a committee, I think you guys should consider the idea of maybe having like Under Armour or a corporate sponsor come in and just have a conversation. Maybe partner with the county and see if that's somebody, because right now we're not getting a developer to come in to do the project. And maybe that's something that, a corporate sponsor would consider. It would give us what we want and then give them what they're looking for. And we could get maybe some money from the county.
The one thing I would just ask about that is that allowable within the county to have sponsorship of a new building by a corporation? I don't know the legalities of that, but
I think it's a conversation that's worth having.
Okay.
And I think it's a conversation that would be good for the council to think about some of that as well and make sure that we coordinate with you
That'd be
in doing
great, yeah.
something like that.
We'd love some direction on that of how to proceed or advice on that.
But what a great place to be, that's the problem we've got right now, instead of all the other problems we
Yeah.
used to have.
think that
But
would be
not to
something-
make fun of it, it was to some degree, it was a judgment we made that talking to them wasn't, up until now, going to really do any good. And that could be different now with some of these new things going on.
Thank you.
So we can have our own conversations about P3s. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report.
Pass the picture of the worms around. Oh, pass it.
And if we have excess worms, I have a recipe for Wiggler pie.
Well, we opened up our can last week with the charter review idea, right?
All the worms around the big tree at the library.
You gave them a little travel plan. Okay. Let's see. We have the acting city manager's proposed fiscal year 2014 budget.
Yes. Welcome.
That shouldn't take long.
Terry, we talked about that before. We do have some binders of the information that's also online. As you know, I like to be able to do lots of online things, but for those who prefer binders, we'll have those. Wanted to go through and first thank the staff that I've worked with in preparing the proposed budget. Yvonne Brooks, Finance Director, is here this evening, and all the department heads have been very helpful and responsive in pulling together what you'll see before you this evening, and then they'll be before you to answer questions through their work session items on their various departmental budgets. As always, we prepare the budget with these three guiding financial principles: that we maintain adequate financial reserves to address timing differences in the receipts of money and to avoid disruption of services, that we maintain city infrastructure, equipment, and facilities now and in the future, and that we use reserve funds for only non-recurring initiatives or capital projects. We've had a number of years of economic uncertainty, and that continues. We've had the effect of the recession on this area. We have a possible impact of the sequester on the Washington, D.C. region. We have municipal tax duplication under study at the county level, and it's taking a little while to get to the point where we have the discussions as the Office of Legislative Oversight completes its report and then goes to the GO committee. I think it's months away before we know where the county will be going on this subject. And there's some state items related to that as well. Highway user revenue level will be discussed after the legislative session ends. So we have, looks like, more money than we have had in recent years for highway user revenue, but to ensure that that continues and escalates over time, it needs to be worked out in the off legislative session time. The effect of the recession has affected the property values in the city of Tacoma Park. For the first time that I'm familiar with, the constant yield tax rate increased due to the decline in the value of real property in the city. The last year's property tax rate was 58 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. It would need to be raised to 60.2 cents just to bring in the same amount of property tax revenue. The next reassessment in Tacoma Park is not until 2016, so the revenue is likely to be stagnant for several years. We were also informed today that there's about 17 properties that have owners that have challenged their property assessment of properties that are over $2 million in value, so there may be changes to come. And we'll have to see how those discussions go about reassessments.
That's an aggregate of $2 million for 17 properties?
No. If a property is worth $2 million or more.
Oh,
Many
so
apartment buildings and other commercial properties primarily.
Yeah.
We do have some good news. The Maryland Transportation Infrastructure Investment Act was passed. This will allow state highway maintenance to continue in Tacoma Park, which affects our main roads. It will, looks like, bring the Purple Line and related economic development in the long run, which is very important to our tax base in the future. And there's a potential for the increased highway user revenue. And we've got kind of the basic numbers that you'll find in the budget. Total revenues of all funds are about $23.7 million. Total expenditures of all funds, $25.5 million. I also have the general fund revenues of $21.5 and the expenditures of $23.3 million. The highlights of this proposed budget are to keep the tax rate at the 58 cents. This means that we're taking a hit on potential revenue. It does keep also the personal property tax rate at 1.55 cents and the railroad and public utility tax rate staying at 1.57 cents. I'd like to create a 2-year half-time position to coordinate and provide service to seniors and others as part of a pilot program that could be reassessed in the second year to see if it should be half-time, if it should continue, and how it should be structured to continue. In talking with other folks who have coordinated these kinds of positions in the past, it takes a little bit of time to work it out. I also, with the uncertainty of the budget, a little bit concerned about committing to an ongoing position. I also am proposing to increase the amount of the recommended contribution to the police pension plan by $100,000. For that, you'll see that in the past year, our rate was 34.18% of the police. The city contributes an amount that's based on the police salaries, and we take 34.18% of that and contribute it to the pension plan for the police. The actuarial recommendation was to have a 39.7% increase, which would be about $1,061,000. We're proposing that the rate be 43.34%, which would give us an additional $100,000 to the police pension plan. We would continue economic development and environmental sustainability initiatives, and as we go through the department's proposals, you'll see what's proposed for those, and I'll mention them briefly here tonight. I also want to see that we position the city for the future. One of the things that has been raised in a number of discussions is the extent to which the city's computer hardware and software are appropriate for the future. And I'm proposing an assessment of that. We have suggested about $20,000 towards that kind of an assessment. There's also been a request for the visioning process of the future role of the Tacoma Park Library. To me, that's a much smaller kind of contribution needed for that, but it's a way to discuss what services should the Tacoma Park Library provide, what role does it function, and if there are some even building issues over time, that we can be prepared for what those might be. In recognition of the continued heavy workload for the city TV and auditorium staff, I'd like to we have many part-time and contract staff doing work. I'd like to create 2 full-time positions and then reduce use of other part-time and contract staff. So it'd be the same number of hours, but it does comply with the council's directive of Ordinance 2007-52, which is to create benefited positions when it seems like there are continuing regular positions. I'm also proposing, in recognition of the increasing workload for the IT staff, to add a part-time administrative assistant position. There is a proposal, and it is in the county budget, to increase the cable operating funds for the city from what we currently get is about $75,000 a year to $425,000 per year. Those funds could certainly pay for our city TV staff, but can also pay for some IT staff time. I would not propose to add this part-time administrative assistant position until we see how those negotiations go forward. The city TV staff, I think we're required really to make that change. There have been a number of late current year changes. We have Sunday hours for the library, computer center, and community center beginning in May. There's an associated increase in budget and staff for that. A little over 2 FTEs, full-time equivalent positions, plus maintenance staff are associated with that. And also, as we discussed when the police department was here several times, a change from a single position in the police department that's the half supervisor of a dispatch function and half emergency management coordinator to a full-time dispatch supervisor and a half-time emergency management coordinator. So for the summary of staff changes, we have a net increase of about 5.5 FTEs. There have been some significant changes just in moving some staff around, so some of the numbers go up and down, and we'll go through those as we work with the different departments, and I can answer your questions this evening as well. In terms of economic development initiatives, we are looking at the Tacoma Junction Streetscape Plan for about $250,000 with perhaps $800,000 in an out year to actually do some construction. Hopefully we would in fact trigger state funds for some of that work. We have neighborhood commercial improvements, which we've started in the past, going around to different areas, commercial areas around the city, $100,000 to implement what focus groups want to see in terms of improvements to commercial areas. The completion of the Ethan Allen Gateway Streetscape for $105,000. 2 sets of funds for the Old Tacoma Business Association, the $30,000, which is the continuing funding, and $15,000 for the Tacoma Junction activities funding. They also asked for an additional $20,000, which I have not included in this proposed budget. Here we have also $35,000 set aside for a feasibility study. This is could be for a variety of different sites, but we were primarily looking at the New Hampshire Avenue Rec Center, something that may need to have some planning related to it. When we look at some of the funds that we will have available with this budget, providing the discussions with the county go forward, we may want to consider putting some money towards New Hampshire Avenue and University Boulevard improvements or support for the Crossroads Development Authority, similar to that of the Old Tacoma Business Association. For environmental sustainability, we're going to be completing the Sustainability Action Plan by October and begin implementation probably before then. We have $190,000 set aside for that. The Flower Avenue Green Street project has $596,000 from the state allocated. There are no city funds allocated in this budget because of the direction of council and the resolution. Personally, I would recommend that the council revisit that and look at a way to add some city funds to that and use it also as leverage to get state funds. There will be stormwater projects at Maplewood and Maple, Larch and Glazewood, and Flower and Cherry, and a variety of gardening projects around the city. Other expenditures of interest, we routinely supplement the state homeowner property tax program. We've allocated $166,000 for that. We have a standard amount of about $25,000 for emergency assistance services that adds to the funds that people send in with their stormwater bill. We have money to support city festivals, and the $125,000 for the large community grant program as yet undesignated by the council. Other items of interest, the equipment replacement reserve figure is $1,300,000. That's the figure that's calculated to ensure that we have funds in future years for replacement of heavy equipment in the city. And another $250,000 set aside to the facility maintenance reserve. One of the things that I'd want to see in the coming year is a real evaluation of the facility maintenance reserve, because there's not a full list of the kinds of things that could be used for and what the kinds of funds are needed. And so that's a project that needs to happen. As you look through the budget, you'll see that as of the end of the next fiscal year, June 30th, 2014, the general fund balance is projected to be $3,899,280. The recommended minimum balance of this fund is $3 million. It allows about $900,000 that could be used for one-time expenditures. I would caution that as we will be having discussions with the county, we don't know exactly what their changes might be to the funds that we do have in the budget for revenue. But it also identifies a place that we may be able to look for the funds for some of these project areas that I think would help our economic development initiatives and our green initiatives. As you saw in the past couple weeks, we've made some changes to the speed camera fund, and that's reflected in this budget. At the beginning of this current year, the projected revenue was about $3 million, with expenditures just over $3 million. We had 6.26 full-time equivalent positions paid for by the speed camera fund, and we had our capital projects, most of our sidewalk, traffic calming, ADA improvements, and some police equipment all coming out of the speed camera fund. As you know, the revenue was much less than was originally projected, and so our proposed FY 2014 amounts are the revenue expected about $1.5 million, expenditures a little less than that. We have moved out of the budget, out of the speed camera fund, all of the staff that don't work on speed camera things. So the 3 positions there do work with the speed camera fund. There's also some police equipment, $315,000, that we're projecting to use and be paid for by the speed camera fund. The other elements of the speed camera fund have been moved to the general fund, 3.26 FTEs. So when you look at the police department budget, that FTE number has gone up because of the move. The sidewalks and traffic calming budget of $505,000 has moved to the general fund, and the ADA sidewalk improvements of $600,000 has also moved to the general fund. The budget review schedule is heavy in April. And we have tonight's budget presentation, work session on Thursday. Next Monday is the first official public hearing. We've got work sessions that continue through May 2nd with another public hearing on April 29th. In early May, there's budget reconciliation. In mid-May, the first and second reading of the budget ordinances. I look forward to working with you as we go through each of the various departments. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have tonight, but I think we've also got a long time to answer a lot of detailed questions as we work with the various departments. So I'm open to answer your questions.
I would encourage us to formulate our questions going forward. I'm not sure how much we want to, that was a lot of general information to take in. I can think of some questions that I would ask, but it's going to start getting down in the weeds. And I think if we take those in an orderly fashion, we can do them justice.
And I appreciate that.
Later.
Yes. I urge you to look through the budget. If you have some questions, please let me know. I'm happy to either answer them directly or have the right person answer them. And then we'll be going through with Public Works and Police on Thursday.
And the piece that you just did now is in the binders?
That's correct. Well, the piece I just did now. My PowerPoint is not in the binders.
But the points you covered in the PowerPoint
Yes.
are in here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to thank you for a timely and orderly budget presentation.
Thank you.
And I second that.
Concise and thorough. Thank you.
Well, Terry, you asked me.
I was pessimistic, I must admit.
He thought I was going to keep you here all night.
I'm disappointed.
Oh.
I was prepared.
Fred, you can stay if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll turn down the lights and leave a little air going.
Leave the light on for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a consent agenda as the remaining item on our agenda. We have 4 items on it, 3 single reading ordinances and a resolution recognizing Arbor Day. Would somebody like to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Daniels Cohen. Since there are single reading ordinances on there, and I assume we still have Councilmember Mayle with us remotely, we will have a roll call vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Daniels Cohen.
Yes.
Councilmember Grimes.
Yes.
Councilmember Mayle.
Yes.
Councilmember Schultz.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Williams.
Aye. So the consent agenda passes unanimously, and that is the last item on our agenda, so we are adjourned for the evening.
Love it, love it.